My boss's daughter fired me as soon as she took over the company. Little did she know she was about to lose everything, because I knew something they didn't. My name is Chloe Davis, and I am 34 years old. For the past 8 years, my life has been closely intertwined with Sterling Solutions, a respected financial advisory firm in downtown Boston, Massachusetts. I am not just an employee. I am the head of data analytics, leading a small but vital team of people who crunch numbers and complex algorithms day and night to find insights and optimal solutions for our clients. I love my job. The thrill of discovering the truth behind dry spreadsheets. The ability to turn data into valuable strategic decisions. I am single, fairly stable, and almost entirely dedicated to my career. Arthur Sterling, the company's founder and until recently CEO, has always been a boss, a mentor, and a person I deeply respect and admire. But the world I had become accustomed to which I had devoted most of my youth and intelligence, suddenly collapsed one fateful afternoon, shortly after the transfer of power. Mr. Arthur Sterling officially announced his retirement last week. There was a small, cozy farewell party at the office. Good wishes, fresh flowers, and even tears of regret from longtime employees like me. At that party, he also solemnly introduced his successor, his only daughter, Victoria Sterling. Victoria is about my age, about 35 or 36, and has just returned from New York after many years working for a large investment bank. The atmosphere at that time was somewhat solemn, a little nervous, but also contained hope for a smooth transition, a future that continues the values that Mr. Arthur has built. Just hours after the final cheers had died down, before the flowers and gifts for Arthur had been cleared away, I received a brief email from Mark Jenkins, who had been appointed by Victoria as the brand new HR director on her first morning in the job. The email asked me to be at the new CEO's office at 2 p.m. I walked into Arthur's familiar office, now Victoria's, with a certain curiosity and perhaps a certain hope for a frank discussion about the company's new strategic direction and the role of data analytics within that vision. But Victoria Sterling, a woman with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, a powerful navy suit, and a cold smile, didn't even bother to invite me to sit. She leaned against the edge of her large mahogany desk, her arms crossed over her chest, and regarded me with a scrutinizing, somewhat patronizing gaze. "Ms. Davis," Victoria began, her voice sharp and emotionless, as if she were reading a prepared memo. "After reviewing Sterling Solutions' staffing structure and strategic direction for the next phase of development, I have determined that your current data analytics department, as well as your role as head of department, are no longer necessary or appropriate to the company's new vision." My ears rang. No longer needed? No longer relevant? The department that I had spent 8 years building, the department that had quietly but crucially contributed to the success of so many deals, so many client investment decisions? Victoria continued, not giving me a chance to collect my thoughts. "Therefore, I regret to inform you that your employment will be terminated effective immediately at the end of the business day today. Mr. Mark Jenkins will work directly with you on the termination procedures and the severance package as prescribed." No further explanation. No thanks for the 8 years of dedication. No humanity. Just coldness, cruelty, and a message as clear as day. I was no longer welcome here. I was just an old legacy that needed to be eliminated so she could quickly assert her power and make her mark. The initial shock and bewilderment quickly gave way to bitter humiliation and a simmering anger in my chest. Victoria Sterling, a new CEO who had probably not even read the company's annual report, who certainly had no idea of the quiet but extremely important contributions my department had made, had dared to make such a cruel and short-sighted decision? Did she think she had gotten rid of an unnecessary person? A burden to her new vision? Little did she know, she had just made a fatal mistake. A mistake that could cost Sterling Solutions everything. Because I, Chloe Davis, the woman she had just fired without mercy, was holding a secret. A vital secret related to a deal that could determine the survival of the company itself. A secret that perhaps even Arthur Sterling, in his naive trust in his daughter's ability and maturity, could not foresee the consequences if it was handled foolishly. 8 years ago, I was just a 23-year-old young woman, fresh out of college with a degree in applied mathematics and statistics, full of ambition and a little shyness, when I walked into the interview at Sterling Solutions. It was Mr. Arthur Sterling who interviewed me. He didn't just look at my excellent transcript or impressive research projects. He saw the potential, the passion for numbers, and the sharp analytical ability hidden behind my somewhat quiet appearance. He gave me a chance, and more importantly, he became a teacher, a dedicated mentor, who guided me from my first hesitant steps to becoming a seasoned data analyst. Under his guidance, I built the data analytics department from scratch. We are more than just data crunchers. We are data storytellers, uncovering hidden trends, hidden risks, and golden opportunities that others might miss. My department's analytics have become a solid foundation for countless strategic decisions for the company, helping Sterling Solutions clients, from venture capital funds to large corporations, make smart investment choices, optimize profits, and minimize risks. I am proud to have built a proprietary data collection, processing, and analysis system that has brought outstanding efficiency and a significant competitive advantage to Sterling Solutions. My relationship with Mr. Arthur Sterling has always been based on mutual respect, trust, and practical work efficiency. He regularly consults me on complex issues and high-risk deals. He appreciates my meticulousness, carefulness, and foresight. That is why, when an extremely important and sensitive opportunity arises, I am one of the very few people he trusts to handle it. About 6 to 8 months before Mr. Arthur officially announced his retirement, he had secretly begun preliminary negotiations to sell all of Sterling Solutions to Apex Holdings, a very large and prestigious private equity fund in the global financial markets. This was a landmark deal, not only determining the future of Sterling Solutions, but also a huge retirement gift, a recognition of Mr. Arthur's lifetime of dedication. The deal was kept at the highest level of secrecy, known only to a few people in the top management. And I, Chloe Davis, due to my key role in managing and analyzing all the company's core data, along with the absolute trust that Mr. Arthur had in me, was chosen as one of those people. I was assigned to directly participate in the due diligence process, detailed business assessment, from Apex Holdings. I was responsible for preparing, analyzing, explaining, and presenting all historical financial data, current operating performance, strategic customer portfolio, growth forecast models, and potential risk assessments to Apex's team of experts. For many months, I worked directly and regularly with Mr. Harrison, the investment director of Apex Holdings, an extremely astute, cautious investor who always demanded absolute transparency and accuracy of every number and every information. It was during this in-depth and complex due diligence process, when I had to go through every page of the books, review every contract, analyze every transaction over the years, that I accidentally discovered a black spot, an extremely serious hidden problem in the financial structure of Sterling Solutions. If Apex Holdings knew the truth, they would probably cancel the entire deal immediately, or at least force the purchase price down to a miserable level. The issue involves a series of financial transactions and accounting reports from about 3 or 4 years ago, conducted by a former CFO. There are signs that these transactions are not completely transparent, may have been overly optimized to make the books look good, and may even be at risk of violating some accounting and financial regulations. If exposed by the authorities, it could cause huge legal risks and financial losses for Sterling Solutions in the future. I immediately reported this discovery to Mr. Arthur Sterling in a private and confidential meeting. He was shocked and concerned. After reviewing the evidence with me, he acknowledged that this was a serious matter that needed to be carefully and tactfully cleaned up before the deal with Apex Holdings could go to the final stage. He believed that he could handle it, could find a way to adjust the reports or present a risk mitigation to Apex without significantly affecting the value of the deal. And he asked me for one thing: to keep this matter absolutely secret from everyone, including Victoria, his daughter, who was about to take over as CEO. The reason he gave was that he was afraid that Victoria, with her inexperience in management and perhaps a bit of a hot-headed personality, would not be calm enough to handle this sensitive situation and could leak information or make wrong decisions that would jeopardize the deal. He promised that after the deal was completed, everything would be resolved smoothly. Out of loyalty to Arthur, for the survival of Sterling Solutions and my own future at the time, I agreed to keep quiet. I was the only person, other than Arthur, who had access to those sensitive numbers, who understood the minefields hidden in the company's huge data warehouse. and I began working quietly with him to prepare the safest cleanup plan. But then, Arthur suddenly decided to retire a little earlier than expected, perhaps for health reasons or to spend more time with his family. And Victoria Sterling appeared, bringing with her new vision. That afternoon, after Victoria had unceremoniously fired me, I was escorted back to my desk by Mark Jenkins, the new HR director, to collect my belongings. The severance package they offered was only 2 months' salary, a pittance for my 8 years of service. Attached was a lengthy termination agreement with numerous clauses, including one that required me not to disclose any negative information about the company after I left. I skimmed through it, smiling bitterly. Did they think I would sign it so easily? I calmly packed up my few personal belongings, a few technical books, a small cactus, a photo of the data analysts from last year's team building trip. I didn't say a word about Apex Holdings' secret. I didn't argue, I didn't beg, I didn't show weakness. I simply accepted the situation, signed the handover of company assets, laptop, phone, access card, and politely declined to sign the severance agreement, saying I needed more time to review it with my personal lawyer. Mark Jenkins looked a little annoyed, but there was nothing he could do. I left the Sterling Solutions building late that afternoon, to the silence and, perhaps, to Victoria's delight. My silence was not resignation. It was preparation for the storm that was about to come. The first few days after the shock of being fired were quite heavy. The feeling of shock, anger, and betrayal was still there. Not only did I lose my job and my stable income, but I also lost my faith in fairness and loyalty in the workplace. I felt deeply hurt not only by Victoria's decision, but also by the silence and lack of protection from Mr. Arthur Sterling, a man I had always respected. Perhaps he was too tired, too trusting of his daughter, or simply he no longer had enough strength and influence to intervene. I took a few days to calm down and sort out the chaos in my head. I started planning my next steps. The immediate goal was to find a new job, but more importantly, I had to decide what to do with the secret about the Apex Holdings deal that I was holding. I decided not to act hastily. I needed more information, more clarity on what was really going on inside Sterling Solutions under the new Ice Queen. Unfortunately, I still had a few friends, some good, quiet old colleagues who remained at the company. Ben Carter, a talented but quiet IT guy who had been on my team, became a valuable source of inside information. Ben had a deep dislike for Victoria and the way she treated her longtime employees. He would occasionally text or call me from an unknown number, keeping me updated on the latest developments. And what Ben told me only added to my anxiety and to my resolve. Victoria was carrying out a drastic and somewhat brutal reorganization. She had fired several other middle managers who had been with Arthur for years and was quickly replacing them with her own confidants from New York. Morale in the company was plummeting, and there was panic, discontent, and fear throughout the departments. But the most important thing Ben revealed was that Victoria seemed to be personally taking over the work with Apex Holdings on the acquisition. Or perhaps she had delegated it to one of her new recruits, who had absolutely no experience and deep understanding of the complex layers of data, the sensitive numbers that Arthur and I had spent so much time analyzing and preparing solutions for. Ben said that Victoria seemed very confident, even impatient, wanting to quickly complete the deal to score points with the board of directors or at least to prove her superior ability to her own father. It seems that Mr. Arthur, having officially retired and perhaps having too much confidence in his daughter's abilities, did not intervene deeply in this process anymore, or did not fully warn Victoria about the potential minefields in the dataset she was about to present to Apex. Hearing that, I knew Victoria was on an extremely dangerous path, not only for herself, but also for the future of Sterling Solutions. If she, out of ignorance and possibly arrogance, presented the raw numbers carelessly, or failed to explain the anomalies that Apex's core filtering team would surely find, the consequences could be dire. The deal was in danger of falling apart entirely. Or worse, if Apex Holdings discovered a deliberate misrepresentation or serious financial risks, they could not only cancel the deal, but also sue Sterling Solutions, causing a massive financial scandal that would destroy the reputation Arthur had spent his life building. I was at a difficult crossroads. I could have chosen to remain completely silent, to stand by and watch Victoria dig her own grave and drag the company down with her. That would have been sweet revenge for the way she had treated me. But my professional conscience, my respect for Arthur's years of service, and the safety of my remaining colleagues would not allow me to do so. I could also try to contact Mr. Arthur Sterling directly to warn him of what was happening. But would he still have the presence of mind and influence to interfere with his beloved daughter's decision? Or would he blindly trust Victoria and think that I was just trying to sabotage him out of spite? In the end, I realized there was only one possible option, one that could both protect Apex Holdings' interests, be a subtle and effective punishment for Victoria's arrogance and injustice, and still keep myself in a safe legal and moral position. The key piece of information came from Ben on a Friday afternoon. He texted urgently that Victoria had just sent an updated final set of due diligence documents to Mr. Harrison at Apex Holdings. It seemed that she had either adjusted some of the numbers herself or had her new team, who were completely unaware of the hidden intricacies, prepare the documents in a sketchy manner. Victoria's final meeting with the Apex Holdings board to finalize the key terms and possibly sign a preliminary agreement for the acquisition was due in the middle of next week. Time was running out. That night, as I sat at my computer, my heart was beating faster than normal. I knew I had to act. I didn't want to completely sabotage the deal, which would have meant the collapse of Sterling Solutions and the loss of many innocent jobs. But I also couldn't let Apex Holdings be taken advantage of, and I certainly didn't want Victoria Sterling to get away with her stupidity and bad decisions. I carefully composed an email, using a secure email service and a temporary address, completely anonymous, leaving no trace that could be linked to me. The email was sent directly to Mr. Harrison's personal address at Apex Holdings, someone I had had the opportunity to work closely with for many months and knew well his diligence, professionalism, and high demand for transparency. The email was written in a very professional and objective manner. I did not mention my name, nor did I accuse or defame Victoria Sterling. I simply introduced myself as someone who has worked extensively with Sterling Solutions' entire financial and operational database, and has some understanding of Apex Holdings' rigorous due diligence process. In the email, I wrote that, out of respect for Apex's transparency and investment prudence, I would politely note a few important data analysis points that, in my personal view, may have been overlooked or not fully and accurately presented in the updated due diligence package you recently received from Sterling Solutions. Next, I didn't jump to conclusions or make accusations. Instead, I asked a series of extremely pointed and detailed questions, aimed directly at the financial minefields I knew existed on Sterling Solutions' books. Hidden bad debts that were carefully hidden, over-reliance on a few unstable revenue streams, or shady transactions in the past that could pose legal risks. I even included a few charts analyzing anonymized data, from which I stripped any personally identifiable information, to visually illustrate the areas that warranted closer scrutiny. I ended the email with a sentence emphasizing the importance of further due diligence on these points to ensure the integrity, accuracy, and absolute transparency of the entire transaction for the benefit of both parties. My goal was clear, not to directly sabotage the deal, but to plant a seed of well-founded doubt in the minds of Mr. Harrison and the Apex Holdings team. I wanted to force them to ask the right questions, to dig deeper into the right sensitive areas, and from there, they would discover for themselves the truth or the serious risks that Victoria Sterling, through inexperience, arrogance, or even willfulness, was ignoring or not competent enough to identify and address. After checking my email one last time, I took a deep breath and hit send. The email was sent late into the night. I shut down my computer, feeling a strange sense of tension and relief. The final move had been made. Now all I had to do was wait and see how the game would play out. I didn't have to wait long. Just 2 days later, at the beginning of the new work week, Ben called me, excited and a little confused. "Chloe, something's wrong," Ben practically shouted into the phone. This morning, Apex Holdings sent out an urgent request for Sterling Solutions to provide a bunch of detailed data and explanations on some extremely sensitive financial issues that no one had touched before. They also requested an emergency meeting with Victoria and the entire new finance team this afternoon. Victoria and her new recruits looked pale and were running around like chickens with their hair caught in their throats. It looks like someone has hit the bullseye. I smiled to myself. The seed of doubt had sprouted. Mr. Harrison, as I had expected, was a very shrewd and cautious investor. He would never ignore even the slightest sign of abnormality, especially when it came from an anonymous inside source with such astute analysis. The emergency meeting between Sterling Solutions and Apex Holdings that afternoon, according to Ben, who had to provide technical support for the online meeting, was a disaster for Victoria Sterling. Faced with difficult questions, requests for detailed explanations of complex financial figures and problematic transactions from the past that she was completely unfamiliar with, Victoria became flustered, answered incoherently, and at times even contradicted what she had just said. Her inexperience, lack of insight into the company's internal affairs, and possibly even her clumsy attempt to cover it up, were fully exposed to the sharp eyes of the Apex Holdings team of experts. The result was inevitable. A few days after that disastrous meeting, Apex Holdings made an official announcement. Scenario 1 happened. They decided to completely withdraw from the Sterling Solutions acquisition. The reason given was that, after further due diligence, unacceptable potential financial and governance risks were identified, along with a lack of transparency in the provision of information by Sterling Solutions. This was a huge shock, a fatal blow to Sterling Solutions and especially to Victoria Sterling's personal reputation. To let such a vital deal fall apart so completely just weeks after taking over as CEO was an inexcusable failure. Her new strategic vision had led the company to the brink of a real crisis. Mr. Arthur Sterling, although retired, must have been extremely disappointed, angry, and perhaps embarrassed by his daughter's incompetence. I heard that he personally went to try to salvage the situation, but it was too late. The confidence of Apex Holdings was completely lost. Sterling Solutions' board of directors or other major shareholders called an emergency meeting. Victoria Sterling's position as CEO was more shaky than ever. Just a few weeks later, the inside news leaked out. Victoria Sterling had voluntarily resigned for personal reasons. Mark Jenkins, her trusted HR director, and several other new recruits also left without fanfare. The new empire Victoria had tried to build collapsed as quickly as it had been built. I followed all this from afar, through financial news and occasional updates from Ben. I didn't feel an overt sense of triumph, but there was an undeniable sense of quiet justice being served. Victoria Sterling had paid the price for her arrogance, her short-sightedness, and her poor judgment in underestimating the value of a dedicated and knowledgeable employee like me. During that time, I also found a new beginning for myself. After several rounds of interviews, I received a job offer for the position of Director of Strategic Analysis at another leading private equity fund in Boston, a firm that was even larger and had a better reputation than Apex Holdings. My competence, experience, and attention to detail were highly appreciated by them. Interestingly, during one of the final interviews, one of the fund's managing directors casually mentioned the need for due diligence when evaluating mid-sized financial advisory firms, especially after the recent scandals of Sterling Solutions and Apex Holdings. I just smiled and said nothing more. Perhaps one of the best and most unexpected endings to my story came a few months after I started my new job, when I received an email from a rather unfamiliar address. It was Mr. Harrison from Apex Holdings. He wrote that after the Sterling Solutions deal fell through, Apex had made changes to its investment strategy and was looking for a senior data analyst with deep experience in financial advisory to rebuild their internal due diligence team. He had come across my qualifications through some industry sources and wanted to invite me to discuss a potential partnership. He never mentioned the anonymous email, but I had a feeling he was onto something. I politely declined Mr. Harrison's invitation, as I had just settled into my new job and was very happy. But the invitation, even if I did not accept it, was a tacit acknowledgement of the value and sharpness of the analysis I had provided. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the best way to deal with injustice and betrayal is not loud confrontation, not bitter revenge, but using wisdom, information, and silence wisely and at the right time. Victoria Sterling fired me because she thought I was just a number on the payroll, a subordinate employee who could be replaced easily. She did not know that I held the numbers that could decide the fate of an entire company, numbers that could expose weaknesses and cover-ups. She did not know that sometimes knowledge is the ultimate power, and silence is the wisest and most deadly move. I lost a job I had been attached to, but I regained respect for myself, protected my professional ethics, and more importantly, opened a new, brighter, and more promising chapter in my career. When faced with a sudden power shift at work and unfair treatment from new leaders, we often feel helpless and hurt. But perhaps in every situation, there are always ways for us to protect our values and seek justice in our own way. What do you think about using company secrets or sensitive information to protect yourself when being treated unfairly? Is it a legitimate action, or does it cross the line of professional ethics? And how would you choose to react in a similar situation? Please share your views and stories.